A long-standing debate has prevailed amongst humanity through the centuries. The question of whether we are in control of our own future, or if fate holds the strings and plays puppet master. How many consider that life's direction is determined by both? Perhaps fate chooses your surroundings with your heart as a reference. Perhaps, on the days with a clear sky and a rainbow in the distance, fate sees a cat stuck in a tree and directs a kind person to said tree. Or, when the storm clouds brew in the sky, fate knows your hiding space and lets a bully find it too. Then there are the times fate feels adventurous. They consider two children with a multitude of twisting pathways that spiral both to heaven and hell, and through an irresistible curiosity, decides to play a game. And so, when you pass the pale, overgrown grass, swayed by the breeze, and hear the pain cries of another child, fate takes a gamble and urges you forward. "Hello? Are you okay in there?" You'd call through the verdure, ignorant to the door you are unlocking, and the hard choices it would bring you one day. "Go away!" a teary voice yelled. Your meeting was inevitable, but fate wanted you to see him when he was a stellar nebula, with every bit of potential to become the brightest star in the sky, before life sucked out that light. You timidly slipped your hands between the curtain of tall grass, opening to a ring of black char, scented by a white-haired boy hugging his arms. His hair was bright, akin to a white dwarf, and his eyes blue and sparkling with tears, like a river in the Arctic, empty of impurities. His arms were red with irritation, and wisps of smoke fluttered from his skin. In the midst of the blackened ground, he appeared a gift from the sky, a fallen angel. But he cried like he so desperately hated to be struck down from heaven. "Go away!" You approach, cautiously, like you would a skittish animal. "That doesn't look so good," you say, eyeing his arms. "I said leave!" the boy shrieked. He flung his arm out and sprayed a wide arc of fire. You stumble away, tripping on your feet and falling flat. The fire lit up the brush, and the boy hurried to his feet. He grabbed a bucket and chucked the water, dousing the flames before they could spread. He whipped around, bowing apologetically. "I'm so sorry. Heroes shouldn't attack people." You swallow, glancing at the burnt grass. Cool quirk," you state, a little shaky from nearly being burned to death. "You really think so?" the boy exclaimed, excitedly, before seeming to realize you were trembling on the ground after he lashed out. He knelt next to you, hesitantly. "Are you okay? I didn't mean to scare you." You try to smile. "I was just a little surprised." You stood up to level with his gaze, catching sight of his blistering arm. "Is that why you were crying? Is your quirk hurting you?" "My quirk isn't hurting me," he snapped, and you jumped. He noticed, and deflated. I just need a bit more practice. I'll get it. I was just angry." You twist to fully face him, pulling up your legs to sit cross-legged. "Why are you angry?" The boy looked down, dejectedly. "My father doesn't believe I can be a hero anymore, because my quirk does this." He glanced at his arm. "We used to train together, but now he doesn't even look at me. It's like I'm a mistake. But I know if I just train, if I show him, I can be as great of a hero as he is. He'll love me again." He spoke with such conviction, such devotion to his cause. How could you not be enamored, even as young as you were? The fates looked on with wonder at the two children, oblivious to the hardships the path they'd chosen would bring. Well, if you want, I could train with you. I want to be a hero too when I grow up. You'd extended your hand like you'd seen adults do. We can help each other. Be partners in crime. Oh wait, that's not right. Partners in law? There was a time when the boy's eyes held pure, innocuous joy, and he giggled like there was nothing wrong in the world. This was that precious moment. He laughed. That sounds stupid, but he shook your hand. Pathways connected, twisted and entwined, and the fates settled in their seats for the show. You'd learned that the boy's name was Touya, Todoroki Touya, and when that name held no significance to you, he'd emphatically explained that his father was Todoroki Enji, more famously known as Endeavor, the flame hero. Your eyes had lit up in awe, amazed that you had the privilege of befriending the son of the renowned hero. Touya basked in the reverence, boasting that he would surpass his father, becoming even greater because that was his birthright. You were captivated by his drive and the brilliant spark in his eye. Touya and you practiced in the place you'd met, which apparently had a convenient little pond a few steps away, where he'd got the water in case of mishaps. You met him there almost every day after school, leaving just before the sun set, exhausted but ecstatic with the progress you'd both made. Touya's fire climbed higher and higher with each passing day, challenging the sun's finishing glare, and you marveled at how he'd progressed in just a few months of knowing him. However, the boy didn't understand the term rest. It was lucky that he had you as a friend. You'd pull him away from training for as ever long as he'd allow, even if it was just to skim stones or find shapes in the clouds. A few moments of peace. We should definitely become hero partners, you say, as you laid on the soft grass that had been spared from Touya's wrath. It was a good thing no one else frequented this pond, or they may have been in trouble for arson. I'm not sure. My father doesn't have a partner. He's awesome all on his own, Touya says dubiously. You turn to him, pouting. But we'd be so good together, and we'd train together. We know each other. No villain would ever be able to stand against us. Touya frowned. But wouldn't that make us weak, having to rely on each other? Of course not. We'd be stronger together, you insist. Touya did not look convinced, and you deflate. Well, I mean, we don't have to be partners all the time, you mumble glumly, and turn over. But it would be nice sometimes. You're my friend after all. Touya poked your arm childishly. Are you angry? He asks, puzzled. No, you say shortly. My brother does this when he's angry. I'm not your brother, am I? You snap. Touya huffed. It's not that I don't want to be your partner. I would love to, but I think my father wouldn't take me seriously if I needed someone else to be a hero. Your finger twists a blade of grass, but you do not move to face him. Touya, would you even still want to be a hero if it wasn't for your dad? There was an uncomfortable pause where Touya did not answer, and the breeze rushed through the moment as though it too was curious to hear. Touya stood from the ground abruptly, shouting, "That doesn't matter," before resuming his practice. Even as a child, you knew that Touya's consuming need to win his father's approval was not good for him, that him searing off his own flesh was not normal. However, you wanted to be a good friend, wanted to see the happiness plastered on his face once he'd achieved his goal, knowing you had been right there beside him, his support that had never doubted his conviction. You rose off the ground and joined him, never speaking of the issue again. Despite your differences, your friendship flourished in your little oasis hidden from the world. As you grew older, stories of their home filtered into the air in moments of peace and vulnerability. Touya told you of how his father favored his youngest brother, and how he acted as though the rest of his children didn't exist. You'd hear of your friend's awful reality one day in the shadows and the glimmer of night. The stars would peak their twinkles to listen in, and the moon above only half lit to feign disinterest. "I just wish he wasn't born. It's not fair," Touya yelled, throwing a stone into the pond to rupture the moon's reflection. Touya had left his home after dark, stomping past your house in anger. It was a stroke of luck, or fate, that had you standing at your window to watch him storm away. As quiet as a mouse hiding from a cat's clutches, you'd followed through the window. You both sat at the edge of the pond, two children having no business being out so late, but acting as though you already knew the woes of the world. "Well, think of it this way," you'd said, hoping desperately to deliver comfort. "With Shoto here, you have an even greater chance to prove you're the best. Beat him, your father, and All Might. 3 birds with 1 stone. No one would dare doubt your ability then, not even your father. You'd prove them all wrong." There were few times when Touya expressed doubt, only a handful where his resolve had wavered. "But what if I can't? He'll never take me seriously with his golden child. He'll only keep rejecting me." You grabbed Touya's shoulders, pulling him forcefully to face you. "You've come so far. We've been training for years, much longer than Mr. Golden Child." You implore him with your gaze, conveying your faith in him. "You'll be number 1, Touya." Touya's eyes seemed to sparkle in the darkness, like they hinted of the star trapped within the confines of his body. As you stare into them, heaven and hell hold their breath. You were too young to understand the gravitational pull between you two, or the odd expression fastened on Touya's face. You would think on for years of what might have happened if the little green insect hadn't landed directly on your hand and caused you to jerk away with a yelp of surprise. The moment broke with Touya's laughter. "When you're a hero, you can't be afraid of insects." You scowl. "I wasn't afraid, just surprised." Touya opened his hand, allowing the bright little green into his palm. Where there was one, followed hundreds, emerging from their own little hideouts to illuminate the little pond. You relax at the sight of fireflies dancing along the lily pads and bringing color to the flower petals they crawled behind. This place was beautiful in the day, but the night possessed the true allure. "They remind me of you," Touya said suddenly. "What?" you questioned. "The fireflies. You just both have this glow, like a beacon in the dark, when there seems to be no hope. And then they appear, and everything's just all right." You stare, astounded by his unexpected words, unsure how to reply to such bluntness. "And they're everywhere," Touya muttered hastily. "Like you following me around into this forest where you have no business being. Your parents are gonna kill you." You'd remember that moment years later, and realize why Touya had covered his face and turned away. You'd smile with fondness and melancholy, and wonder what might have been if you'd come to see his blush in the dark. Maybe nothing, maybe more. Would it change the notorious day when you'd pushed him to reveal himself, and his developed skills, to his father? "You're ready! Come on, Touya, I know it!" you encourage. Touya had smiled, like your words were as good as fact. "Okay, Firefly. But I want to practice that last move one more time." "Are you sure? It might affect you later. Doesn't it burn your stomach a bit too much?" you asked worriedly. "I have to make it perfect," he insisted, readying himself. You nodded, stepping back to admire the beauty of Touya, the making of the star that would be brighter than the sun. Looking down from your bedroom window that evening, you watch him trapeze happily into the woods, casting a supportive thumbs up, to which he grinned. You waited patiently to see Endeavor walk past too, knowing of Touya's plans to impress his father. However, hours ticked away, and you grew anxious, eventually saying perhaps an incident happened in the city, or he'd gotten caught up. But the excuses did nothing to mask the truth. Touya's father had not shown up to see his son, and he waited alone in the forest with nothing but diminishing false hope. You crawled out your bedroom window, intending on going out to comfort your friend and hopefully come up with another plan. But then, the sky lit up a brilliant blue. Waves of sapphire flames washed over the forest in the distance, and your heart shriveled up in fear. "Touya!" You had breath, barely a thought crossing your mind before your legs had taken off. Was that him? Was this normal? Part of his quirk? You didn't understand, but knew in the pit of your stomach something had gone terribly wrong. You were stopped before you reached the forest, held in a vice grip as you struggled and screamed that your friend was in there. The heroes on scene hadn't listened, had handed you off to the police without a second glance. Because what was the cries of a child in comparison to the catastrophe before them? Why would it matter that you'd lost your safe place and your best friend all in one day? That a part of yourself had burned away in the blue flames. Or so you thought.